Hello, my friends. Welcome to Storyriem. I am so glad you are here today. Take a slow breath, make yourself comfortable, and let us begin our journey together. Now, imagine for a moment that you are standing in a great hall. The room is filled with people from many different countries. Romans in their fine robes, Egyptian officials in white linen, Greek merchants with golden rings, and Persians from the East. Each of them speaks a different language. Each of them comes from a different world. And then a woman enters the room. She is not the tallest person there. She is not the loudest, but she begins to speak, and something extraordinary happens. She speaks to each person in their own language, in their own words, with their own way of saying things. The Roman official hears his mother tongue. The Egyptian farmer hears the language of his grandparents. Each person feels seen. Each person feels understood. Who is this woman? Her name is Cleopatra, and this is her story. Born into power. Cleopatra's world in Alexandria. The year was 69 BC. The letters BC mean before Christ, the time before the birth of Jesus. In the great city of Alexandria in Egypt, a baby girl was born. Her name was Cleopatra VII. She was born into one of the most powerful families in the ancient world, but also one of the most dangerous. Her family, the Tmic dynasty, had ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. A dynasty means a family that rules a country for many generations. They came originally from Greece. They were clever and very wealthy. But in all those 300 years, not one of them had ever learned to speak the Egyptian language. They ruled Egypt, but they never truly connected with the people of Egypt. Cleopatra grew up in Alexandria, and Alexandria was one of the most remarkable cities in the ancient world. It sat at the meeting point of Africa, Europe, and Asia. Ships arrived every day from every port in the Mediterranean Sea. Merchants, scholars, soldiers, and ambassadors passed through its streets, speaking dozens of languages. The Great Library of Alexandria, one of the most famous libraries in history, stood in this city. It held hundreds of thousands of books from every civilization on Earth. And young Cleopatra grew up surrounded by all of this. She was curious about everything. She loved to learn. She studied mathematics, science, and history. She read deeply and asked difficult questions. And she decided to do something that no ruler in her family had ever done before. She learned to speak Egyptian, the language of the people she ruled, the language of her kingdom. The 9 languages, a queen who chose connection. She did not stop there. She studied Greek, Latin, Arabic, Ethiopian, and several more languages. 9 languages in total. 9. Can you imagine that? A young woman in an ancient world mastering 9 different languages. Not because anyone told her to, but because she believed that speaking to someone in their own language was the most powerful thing a person could do. When she spoke to an Egyptian farmer, she used his words. When she negotiated with a Roman general, she spoke in crisp, clear Latin. When she welcomed a Persian visitor, she spoke in Persian. Every conversation became a bridge, and Cleopatra understood that bridges were power. But brilliance in language could not protect her from the dangers inside her own family. Exile, forced from her own kingdom. When Cleopatra's father died, he left the throne to Cleopatra and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. They were supposed to rule Egypt together, but her brother was very young, and his advisors wanted full control. They convinced the boy to turn against his sister. When Cleopatra was about 21 years old, she was forced out of Egypt. She was sent into exile. Exile means being made to leave your own country against your will. She crossed the desert into Syria alone, far from her palace and her people. But Cleopatra was not a woman who accepted defeat. She gathered a small army. She was patient. She kept her mind sharp. She studied. She planned. She did not know how long it would take. She did not know if she would ever return, but she believed that a prepared and patient mind is stronger than any army. And then, the moment she had been waiting for arrived. The carpet and Julius Caesar. In the year 48 BC, the most powerful man in the Roman world came to Egypt. His name was Julius Caesar. He had conquered much of Europe. He had led armies across mountains and rivers. He was famous, and he was feared. Cleopatra needed to speak with him. His support could restore her to the throne. Without it, her enemies would destroy her. But her brother's guards were watching every road into Alexandria, every gate, every entrance into the palace. So Cleopatra made a decision that was bold, clever, and completely unexpected. She had herself rolled inside a large carpet. Her servants lifted the carpet and carried it quietly through the palace gates directly to Caesar's room. And then the carpet was unrolled. Cleopatra stepped out. Julius Caesar, one of the most experienced and powerful men in the ancient world, was completely amazed. This young woman had taken a dangerous and creative risk. She had found a way where there appeared to be no way at all. They began to talk. They talked for a long time, and that conversation changed everything. Caesar supported Cleopatra. With his help, she returned to the throne of Egypt. She was queen again, and Cleopatra ruled with intelligence, confidence, and purpose. She managed Egypt's great wealth carefully. She made alliances. She made decisions. She was not a figurehead. A figurehead is someone who has a title but no real power. Cleopatra had real power, and she used it with great skill. But in 44 BC, terrible news arrived from Rome. Julius Caesar had been murdered. 23 senators had attacked him in the Senate building. Men who had called themselves his friends. Men he had trusted. He was gone. Cleopatra was alone again, far from Rome, with a young son in a kingdom that depended on the support and friendship of Rome to survive. She needed a new ally, a new friend with power. And Rome, unstable and angry after Caesar's death, was about to give her one. But this new friendship would become something much larger than politics. It would become one of the greatest love stories, Mark Antony and the dream of a great empire. After Caesar's death, 3 men divided Rome between them. One was a general named Mark Antony. He was bold, warm, and charismatic. Charismatic means he had a natural power to attract and inspire people. He was also deeply ambitious. Cleopatra prepared carefully for their meeting. She arrived by golden ship with purple sails and silver oars. Music played on the water. The air was filled with the scent of flowers. She was dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Mark Antony was completely captivated. Captivated means drawn in fully, unable to look away. They fell in love. Antony spent long stretches of time in Egypt with Cleopatra. They dreamed of a great empire in the East, combining the military power of Rome with the deep wealth and ancient wisdom of Egypt. They had children together. They saw themselves as rulers of a new and extraordinary world. But in Rome, one man was watching everything quietly, patiently, carefully. His name was Octavian. He was the adopted son of Julius Caesar, and he wanted total power. He believed that Mark Antony and Cleopatra stood between him and everything he wanted. He declared war in 31 BC. Hashtag the Battle of Actium and the fall of Egypt. The two sides met in a great naval battle near Greece. A naval battle is a battle fought on the sea. It was called the Battle of Actium. Cleopatra and Antony's ships were defeated. Their allies began to leave. Octavian's army marched toward Egypt. There was nowhere to go. Antony, hearing a false report that Cleopatra was already dead, took his own life. When Cleopatra found him dying, the grief was enormous, overwhelming, too large to put into words. She met Octavian. She tried to negotiate. Negotiate means to talk and find an agreement that works for both sides. She tried to find a path forward, but Octavian had already decided her fate. He planned to bring her back to Rome as a symbol of his victory, to walk her through the streets in chains for all of Rome to see. Cleopatra refused. She was a queen. She had always been a queen, and she would not end as someone else's trophy. She died on the 12th of August, 30 BC. She was 39 years old. With her death, the 3,000-year history of Egyptian pharaohs came to its end. For 30 centuries, Egypt had been ruled by its own kings and queens. But after Cleopatra, Egypt became a Roman province, and it would not have a native ruler again for nearly 2,000 years. The last queen of Egypt gone. Hashtag what Cleopatra's life teaches us about language and learning. And so, my friends, the story of Cleopatra comes quietly to a close. She was born into power and into danger. She was brilliant and brave. She loved deeply and lost deeply. And at the end, She chose how her own story would finish. But the thing I want you to remember most about Cleopatra is not the golden ship or the carpet or even the ending. It is the 9 languages. For 300 years, her family ruled Egypt, but never spoke to its people in their own language. They kept their distance. They never truly connected with the world around them. But Cleopatra chose something different. She chose to reach across the distance. She chose to speak. She chose connection. And that, more than anything, is why people still say her name today. Now, my friend, I want to say something to you. You are doing exactly what Cleopatra did. You are learning a new language, not because someone forced you, but because you believe the way Cleopatra believed, that speaking someone else's language is one of the most powerful things a person can do. Every word you learn in English is a small bridge, a bridge between you and every English-speaking person in the world, between you and new ideas, new friendships, new possibilities. Cleopatra built 9 of those bridges. You are building yours right now. Every story you listen to, every sentence that becomes clearer, every new word that your mind quietly holds on to, that is one more bridge you are building. And that is something extraordinary. That is something to be very proud of. Keep listening, keep learning, keep building. This is Storyriem. If Cleopatra's story moved you today, please leave a comment below. Tell me what surprised you most about her life. Was it the 9 languages, the carpet, or the ending? I would love to hear your voice. There are many more stories waiting for you right here. Come back soon, my friend. Until next time, take care of yourself and never stop learning.